go back half a century, you had the Arab world in the grip of what we now look back and see as Arab nationalism. You had the man like Nasser who could unite millions and millions of Arabs, and what united them was Israel.
The period leading up to the Six-Day War, Israel faced an existential threat. The Egyptians placed 100,000 soldiers, 1,000 battle tanks, 500 frontline Soviet-made jets in Sinai, in Gaza, and expressed their open intention to use this army to destroy the State of Israel.
Jordan's armored forces were massed in the West Bank and about to take over the narrow portions of Israel near the Mediterranean.
The Syrian army began massing on the Golan Heights, and all of these, there was a tremendous frenzy in the Arab world, mass demonstrations, clamoring for Israel's destruction. There was no doubt in anybody's mind in Israel that this would happen unless Israel struck first.
Rather than Israel being destroyed, we find ourselves in possession of unimagined territory, returning to the biblical heartland. What we felt then was really a sense of the miraculous.
After the 6 Days War, it's the first time in my life to see the Israelis when they occupied the Gaza Strip. For me to find about 50,000 Palestinians surrounded by tanks, by well-armed soldiers, and I thought at that time it's the end of the war.
The 67 war changed the direction of our lives, and no one planned to do what he's doing now. I was planning to be a judge and a lawyer and to be involved in the struggle against occupation.
Definitely it's our rights and our hope to return back to our homes from which we had been kicked by force of imperialism and Zionism.
I was one of the loyal and faithful Palestinian fighters. And for me, fighting never was an end, it was a mean. The target for me was not to kill people or to cause suffering. The target was once to live in peace, and peace you make with enemies.
When Palestinians took to arms to struggle and to say we have a problem, then they branded us as terrorists.
It doesn't make any difference if your cause is right or not right, if your cause is just or unjust. Some methods of waging conflict, like terrorism, the deliberate and systematic assault on the innocent, are illegitimate.
The whole premise of the State of Israel was that things would be different, that we could take life into our own hands and we could grasp our history and control it. And there's something very, very depressing about the thought that we failed, that we're just another round of Jews being attacked.
Really, there is no room for two states. It's a very tiny place. You can really walk in one day. If you are healthy enough, you can probably walk from the Jordanian River to the Mediterranean.
What do they want from me? Why do they build settlements next to my home, Jericho? Why do they build settlements in Ramallah and Hebron?
Israel at its narrowest point, opposite the West Bank, is 8 miles across. And these are the 8 miles that contain Israel's population centers. Its industrial concentrations are all within this 8-mile, very, very narrow waist. So anybody sitting up here can fire down onto that plain.
Why live here and not in Tel Aviv? If we're not here, Palestinians will be right here, looking down at the people in Tel Aviv.
The settlement enterprise has convinced many Palestinians that Israel has no intention of ever leaving the West Bank, that it intends permanent control of these areas.
Do some settlements obstruct the possibility of the creation of a contiguous Palestinian state in the future? They would if the settlements were there permanently. Israel gave up a territory that was 3 times the state of Israel in order to achieve peace with Egypt, the largest and most powerful Arab country.